You are tuned into Backstage Nonsense. This podcast is brought to you by Sunheri Yade and Behki Batein. Check out our upcoming show, A Cassette in My Walkman, on 6th of May, 6:30 p.m. at Dorothy Winston Center.
Welcome to Backstage Nonsense, yet again with more drama, what happens backstage. And this time, our guest today is, you could call for a musical concert. This person could be the backbone. बहुत लोगों को बोल दिया. We've told backbone to a lot of
Most
people.
important person.
Heart. Could be heart.
Heart.
Could be heart of the show. And the person is Chaitanya. Welcome to the show.
Woo.
Thank you.
So Chaitanya is a sound engineer. He does post-production. He does in-live production. What all do you do here? Please.
Recording, mixing, mastering, and live sound. That's it.
Okay.
That's it?
That's it. And now technical sales. But
Oh, okay. Now technical
Yeah,
sales
yeah.
as well. So Chaitanya and I, Ritika, we go way back. Not as back as you, but we go way back. Actually, the first time I met Chaitanya was for an interview that we did.
it was a
I
podcast.
see.
It was a podcast,
Yeah, yeah.
actually. The first time we met was podcast. See where we've come through, yeah? And that time I told you I'm going to bring you back on a podcast. And see, we've come back now.
Manifestation.
Manifestation is work.
Circle of life.
Circle. So we've done already. Go and check out the podcast that we've done with Chaitanya before. It was a very insightful one. We understood his background. Today what we're going to do is, today we're going to understand about the backstage stories. What happens backstage? Tell us about all the drama that happens.
Tell us everything you have to put up with.
We need more than 20 minutes for that.
So Chaitanya, how did you get into? Because I hear that, I know that you were also training for singing. You're a singer.
Yeah.
You started off with singing.
No, I started off with harmonium.
With harmonium.
I think I was 6 or 7. Then mom was like, "Arey, ye ga bhi sakta hai. Chalo, gana bhi sikha dete hain." And then I started learning from Sandhya aunty. And then lots happened. And then I started showing interest towards the technical side of music. And then Sandhya aunty guided me on that process as well. And here we are now.
So it's been how many years now since you've gone into sound engineering?
I'd say almost 10.
10
Almost 10 years.
years.
Yeah, I did my first show when I was 13. So 11 years. Yeah.
11 years old. Do you remember which show that was?
Yeah, it was a Marathi Monday Natak.
Oh, really?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. I got pulled into that one last minute.
And how did you cope with that? Like not having done it before, and at 11 you're pulled into doing sound for a drama.
The technician was like, "Don't touch this, don't touch that. Isko volume upar niche karo." That's it. That's
Right.
it. So that's how it started.
So that's how you got into that panel, and then now I see your stories where you have got like big panels that you work around with.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even understand half of the keys, but yeah, there's like so many things that you manage.
Yeah.
Getting into the stage side, so you've done a lot of sound work for musical concerts. What's your expertise? Your expertise is musical concerts, or is it also theatre?
Musical concerts now. Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy them the most.
And when someone approaches you, can you explain us the process of how it works? So basically, what are the steps that you take once a client approaches you for a musical concert?
So we decide the date. We figure out when the rehearsals are. I like to attend 1 or 2 rehearsals just to get an idea of it and figure out the scale that we're working with. Then we go through, figure out whether they've got a vendor to provide equipment. If they haven't, then we figure out what's needed, input list, output list, backline, and stage plots. And then accordingly, we pass that on to the vendor, which in most cases, they set everything up for us. So we just provide assistance and guidance when needed. And then we do the show.
What is an input list? What do you mean by that?
Input list is so I do it as channels. So we have channels on a console, 1
Right.
through to X
yeah,
amount.
the big
Yeah.
So I like my input list in a set order where I have drums and percussions first, then keys, bass, then guitars, then keys, then my vocals. Because my left hand does less work than my right hand, being right-handed. So I like having my vocalist on my right hand because I can ride their faders very easily. So I give them the input list. They patch everything into the system. They, some are nice enough to name it on the console. Otherwise, I come in, I do my setup, and then I go from there.
I didn't know this thing existed, like the left and right and which side.
Yeah, because a lot of consoles are split, and some have input, output,
Right.
like split into 3. Some are different. But in most cases, I like having the vocalist on my right hand along with the effects
Yeah.
because
think-
that's
Yeah.
what needs the most work in a
that's
show.
experience, right? Because that's the experience that you've learned your way of operating.
Yeah,
And then now you figure out what exactly works for you the best.
Yeah.
And that's how you
I try to.
Yeah, and I see these consoles are like really fancy, and when he puts up some stories, and he's moving things around, it looks really cool? Like, how cool is it actually?
Kuch cool nahi hai. Each thing does the same thing. It's just like 1 times 32. And each thing does
Yeah.
the same thing on each bank.
But I've seen
Yeah.
you use much cooler things. Like I remember for this one concert that we were together in there, you were using an iPad and you were sitting in the audience and doing something from the iPad. You were
Yeah.
like managing things.
Yeah, so in concerts where we can't put the console in front of house because of space restrictions, we if the console is capable of, we put it on its own network and it has its own app. So
Wow.
when you move a fader on the app, it does it on the console physically as well. So it
Just
yeah.
take care of the mic. Yeah, sound guy is very
Yeah, he's
particular about
very
it.
particular.
I think the
He's the
sound guy
sound guy.
turns out to be him.
So Chaitanya, we've worked on. We were just talking about this before the shoot. That we've actually, since our last podcast, we've started working together. We've worked on a few projects. A lot of them couldn't get released.
ये पहला वाला release हुआ है.
This is the first one that's getting
Yes.
released. So it's been great, yeah. But the reason I got into this is because having worked with you, I know that you have certain things that you're very particular about, right? So can you talk about things that piss you off as a sound engineer?
The main thing is time. If I'm called somewhere, I'm on time.
Yes.
But like I was brought up on the whole concept of on time. Early is on time.
Yeah.
So I get there 5 minutes early. I'll spend 5 minutes in the car. That's fine. But I'll knock the door at the exact time that I'm called on. But if like people are late, it's a domino effect.
Correct.
Everything gets delayed.
Yes.
And then essentially it's the sound guy or the lighting person that's like, oh, they're too slow. But we're not. We're waiting for this. So the main thing that really annoys me is timing. That's the main thing. Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't want to piss off Chaitanya, you have to be on time always. I've learned the hard way, to be honest, because there were instances where we were working together and I was delayed due to certain things, but then I learned from it and I was like, no.
Delay whether ठीक just like
Let
message,
people know.
call, something
Yeah.
is fine. Then we don't wait.
Yeah.
We carry on with other things.
Recently, I traveled with Chai for a concert outside Auckland.
That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We won't get there, but you're speaking about what pisses Chai off. And I've known Chai since he was 8 years old. So I know him on the personal front, but I'd never seen him on the professional front. And that's the first time I saw him at work. And man, he's a hard taskmaster. How do you manage how do you manage personalities of that sort? And I'm sure people piss you off more than just timing.
I mostly just say yes to everything,
And then?
but then I do what I want. But the main thing for me is as long as my artists are happy on stage,
Right.
they're happy. Then the show comes out. Okay, then I can manage my side of things. If my artists aren't happy, then I'm not happy.
I want to
That's it for me.
understand. I want to understand one thing, because every artist is different,
Yeah.
right? And with artists, I've spoken about this, and I can speak about it very openly. Is that artists comes with certain kind of ego as well, like
Yeah.
it's not ego, but it's basically their
Expectations.
their pride for their art. Like
Yeah.
they know that they're really good at something, and they're proud of it, which can be interpreted as ego in some ways.
I interpret that as expectation.
Right.
Like, for example, an experienced artist is coming in. I'm working for them for the first time. I ask what they want, how they want it, and I try to give them that. Then I ask for their input. Because if I don't ask what they want and they don't want to tell me what they want, then there's that communication barrier, and then,
Yeah.
people aren't happy on either side. So
Right.
if it's someone new, I just ask them, what do you want? How can I help you?
Yeah.
And then we go from there.
And at the end of the day, the goal is same, right? The goal
Yeah.
is to be the best sounding concert or the best
We just
sounding-
want a good show. We want the audience to enjoy themselves, artists on stage to be happy, and the audience to be happy. That's it.
Cool.
So you started your first, just backtracking a little bit, you started your first sound engineering gig, I'll say, as in Marathi Mandal when you were 11.
13.
13, sorry. Assuming you obviously took formal training after that in sound
yeah.
engineering. How were those years like when you were trying to explore and learning? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
It was interesting.
Firstly, what did you study?
I did a bachelor's of audio production.
Ah.
And a thesis in it as well.
Oh, you did
Thesis in
thesis
it.
I didn't.
What was your thesis about?
Basically, whether it's cost effective to spend money on expensive preamps or whether you can get away with software emulation. So it was
Wow.
a report on that. Yeah.
Wow. And what was the output?
People couldn't tell the difference.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least from the samples that I took, which was about 50 students and 20 staff at where I was studying. The trained ears and the being trained ears could not tell differences.
Ah.
Yeah, so
That's quite interesting.
yeah.
Just shows what the industry is moving
Yeah.
towards.
Yeah, it's what
Yeah.
that's just technology. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do so much more now with a small chip rather than a big.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, go ahead with your story then.
What was the question?
The question was, how was what was your learning journey? Like, how did you?
Learning journey
Just
was
tell us, yeah,
it was
little bit.
it was interesting because there were many people that encouraged young people to come and help them or be part of it or even take over at times, but there were also people that didn't want it at all. So it was like finding that spot of how do I crack that hard shell of the coconut and make my way in and things like that. But it was also fun, especially when we studied. I had a great bunch of friends that we just had a lot of fun while studying. Yeah, and that's when I realized that if you're not having fun, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maza nahi aa raha, mat karo.
So now I want to ask you this hard-hitting question. You started off young, right? And a lot of people in this industry are very experienced, and experience means that they are of a certain age. How do you tackle that? Because it's a big equipment is expensive, right? All these equipments are expensive, and the concept is like, oh, बच्चे के हाथ में थोड़ी दूंगा इतना महंगा. So did you come across anything of that?
At times, but I made a mistake where I did damage something. We ended up paying for it. That's fine. But that's one of the biggest lessons that I still carry today is if you don't know how to do it, don't know how to use it, just be upfront with it. Because then you risk damaging something or wasting someone's
What did you
time.
damage? Sorry, just being...
I damaged the microphone.
Oh.
It wasn't an expensive mic, but a mic is a mic at the end of the day. So I did damage a mic.
Yeah.
But then learning from it was more important, right?
Yeah.
So it basically was cost of education.
Yeah.
Yeah, and equipment is one side of it, but I think there's another side to it as well, where you are working with people who are a lot more experienced than you are, in by age or by what they've been doing before, or even in sound. Like what did you face at that time? How did you overcome those situations?
Talk less, listen more. Because like the more experience they have, they're like treasure boxes. You just ask them questions and just listen. And you'll learn so much. That's what I've like. Initially, I used to be a huge chatterbox around a lot of experienced people trying to show that I have this. But like, no, just shut up and listen. That's what I learned.
Okay, now let's get into the spicy bit. Okay, tell us about one instance. Okay, I'm gonna because he's got multiple instances, right? Tell us about one instance where you are sound, right? But now you also have a musical background because you've played the harmonium, so you understand beats, you understand music, you understand everything. Singing also you understand because you've been a singer. The artist is not having a good day. And because the artist is not having a good day, it comes to the sound, right? Because the sound also can manage. How do you tackle... Give us an example of that scenario. What has happened and how did you tackle it?
We did a gig a few weeks ago. Singer had a bad day and came to soundcheck with already a temper. And it's like I noticed it when the moment he walks in because I knew the guy quite well. And I noticed that something's a bit off here. So I stepped back a little bit, just let him do his thing. And then he snapped at me once. And I pulled him aside. I was like, what's going on? Because you're not usually like this. So how do we, get past and just focus on what we're doing right now? So it's just, again, say less, listen more.
Right.
Talking to people, having that conversation.
Because you have to build a relationship with who you're working with, especially when you're doing sound for someone. They want to sound a particular way, and you want that to sound good. You want to take out the best parts of those and add some nice things. And so it's just building a relationship and a rapport with people, and just getting to know what they want, and then giving that to them.
Yeah, because with music, there's multiple instruments like on stage.
Yeah.
And then as a listener, I am not a musician at all, not a singer at all. But as a listener, I'm like, yeah, that bass is coming too much. Yeah, like this is like I don't understand also what bass is, but I'll be like, something is off.
Something doesn't sound right.
And
Yeah.
there are multiple reasons around that. Do you want to explain something about that? Like any instances that you've come across?
I find it comes down to monitoring. When people can't hear themselves or they can't hear people around them, they end up turning themselves up.
Oh.
And so that causes the imbalance, not just on stage, but sometimes in the audience. So we spend a lot of time just getting the monitors right, because as long as everyone can hear themselves properly on stage at a good level, not too
Yeah.
loud, then it makes my job in the front of house easier, because I don't have to worry about the musicians or the singers that much more.
Can you explain what a monitor is? What is the monitor's job? Because to be honest, I understood this when I started spending more time with you, but a lot of them don't know what monitors are.
Yeah, so when you're at a live concert, you have two systems that are playing in conjunction. You have front of house, which is the speakers facing the audience, for the audience. You have monitors that are for musicians. So monitors are used by musicians, singers, anyone on stage to hear not just themselves, but others around them. So if, like, for example, a tabla player can't hear himself, he doesn't know what he's playing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Or singers can't hear the chords. They won't be able to sing in tune. They can't hear the beat. They won't be able to sing in tempo. So being able to
Right.
hear what they need to do their job properly is monitoring.
I see. And do you normally add effects to monitors, or is that just
Not the
front
biggest,
of house?
not the biggest fan, but if they want it. then yeah.
Oh, on
So,
monitors as well?
Yeah, if they insist, then yes.
So you can
Yeah.
add effects to the monitor as well.
Yeah, depending on what console we're using, if it has the ability, then yes.
And how long does it take you to set up sound for all of the musicians and then a sound check for artists?
From like pack-in to sound check?
Yeah,
Hour and a half to 2 hours?
that's it.
Yeah.
That's quick.
As long as everyone is listening to Chaitanya at that time.
Yes.
No, like the first
Otherwise-
hour, no one's there. Like we're just
yeah.
putting things on the ground, cabling. So
Yeah.
it's really quick on that end.
Yeah.
As long as the stage layout is set and like
As long as the stage layout is set.
As
yeah,
long
but
as
that's
it's-
you know
No,
Because I
stage,
remember
stage
this-
plots are done.
I remember this one instance where Chai was called upon. He was at the venue ready to do his setup, but he couldn't do the setup because the stage wasn't set.
Yeah, so that delays everything as well.
Yeah. And then that causes. Yeah. Would you say you have a temper?
I used to. It's a little less now.
Little less now.
That's what you think.
I think.
Okay. What
I
do you
try.
do? What do you do to have a self check-in? Like, you know,
I found a group of really good people that I
Yeah.
either call to put me in my place. Rusbe, Ritika, Miten at times. It's like if they're around, then I tell them the situation and they give it to me straight. Or I call them, Ki bhai aisa aisa hua hai. What do I do? So I have a really good support system around me that put me in my place.
And the reason I asked this question was to hear my name.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, is he going to take my name or not?
All right.
Right now, on that topic, I'm sure you have some embarrassing stories or fun stories. Is there anything you want to share with us? I
Jaise
think
ki-
you should.
Jaise ki?
Look, I know a lot, but I want our listeners and our audience to,
we want
have
you
a
to
laugh.
Share, like a funny story that has happened and, that happened backstage, because this is about backstage nonsense, right? So something that broke off like at the end.
I accidentally
you
pulled the
managed?
power on the whole system before the show started.
You pulled the power on the,
the
system.
whole system before 5 minutes before the show started.
And then what happened?
And apparently the engineer had forgotten to save his show file. And
No.
we had to delay the show by 20 minutes and redo monitors in front of house.
So what happened? Like what happens? Like, can you explain that further? Because I didn't understand. Engineer forgot us to save his files.
So
Like, what
digital
happens?
consoles have like you can save your changes that you make onto a show
Okay.
file or a scene.
Right.
I save after every 5-10 minutes during sound check.
Okay.
That in case something happens, we can come back to where we left it at least 5 minutes ago.
Right.
Yeah, I was young, I think 15 or 16, and I accidentally pulled the wrong power cable out of the wall.
Wow.
And that happened to be the engine, the console that the engineer was using.
Oh, no.
And I looked up and I was like, "Did you save?" I said, "No." I said, "Oh, crap."
Okay, I want to understand more about how this console works. If you're happy to share it, How does this console work? Yeah, because I'm really, and I think our listeners, watchers are quite curious to know as well. What happens in this console? How does
Consoles
it
are
work?
just like a medium for inputs and outputs to go in and out of,
Yeah.
essentially, right? So they have, some consoles have lots of processors,
Okay.
and a lot of them are now digital,
Mhm.
and they have their onboard computers and stuff like that. So just think of it like a Word file.
Mhm.
You're typing, you've made changes, and you've got an output to a printer. And then you
Right.
want to hit save before you send it to a printer in case. So that's basically a console. It's just a medium for inputs and outputs.
So,
and
like for
processing.
example, there's someone coming on stage, like Ritika's going on stage to perform. So there'll be particular kind of levels of sound. So that you just have to click that thing and it'll be for Ritika.
Yeah. We
And
call
then-
that a scene.
That's a
Scene.
scene.
We call
It's
that
a
a scene. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So we save scenes. So sometimes we save scenes for each singer or each song or each segment.
So
Yeah.
how do you do that? When do you do that? Do you do that during rehearsals or?
During sound check.
Sound check.
During sound check. Because all singers do sound check. I ask them to do their quietest song and their loudest
song.
And then I save a scene accordingly.
But I've also noticed when we traveled together and I had the opportunity to sit next to Chai and be his trolley dolly, but holding the paper. But I saw you were, even when the artist was singing, I noticed that you were making certain changes. What is that all about? If you've already set a scene, how does that work?
I mean, you still have to tweak it.
I see.
You still have to tweak it. I mean, artists always perform differently to how they sing in sound check. वो feel आता है audience से. And the lights, the sound, the hazing, everything makes a difference. And in most cases, they're more energetic, which is
Yeah.
awesome, which is great.
I have
So
a
we just have to
question.
tweak it. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep going back to that concert in Christchurch because it was in a different language altogether.
Right.
Right, and Chai doesn't understand the language. At least in Hindi or in English, like you can tell, this is an emotional song. We'll add a little bit of delay to this or whatever. But I noticed in one of the songs that she was singing, the artist, you knew where to add that delay, although you didn't understand. How do you pick up on these kind of things?
This music was very similar to Hindi music. So, and music is music at the end of the day. It's soft, it's rock, it's got a feel, it's got a tempo.
Right.
And you feel it. Ki, haan,
Yeah.
This is a soft song, we can do something to enhance it
Wow.
with this. You just hear it.
That's why they say music has its own language.
Language, yeah.
So
Right.
philosophical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Baba Rusbe.
no, but seriously, this is very interesting because it's a different language, but very well spotted that you still are conscious of that the emotion is probably going to be that.
Yes.
And then you add that effect because that actually makes the song stand out or
Yeah.
the singer stand out. So a sound engineer is very responsible for a musician or a singer to get highlighted.
Absolutely.
All right. So on that note, I think we've had a lot of fun with you. We've understood a few things about sound engineering, about what you do. You want to talk about any upcoming projects that you have?
Cassette in my Walkman,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
May 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. I have a few. I've started doing shows in Mandarin
Oh.
for some friends. I've
Wow.
started doing Sri Lankan shows, as Ritika mentioned. So lots in the pipework, lots of genres as well. Ghazals, soft Bollywood, retro, new stuff, rock.
Wow.
So there's quite a lot of projects in the pipelines. So yeah.
Would you say for a sound engineer, an ear is very important?
Yeah.
How do you take care of your ear?
I get my ears checked once every 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And any other routine you follow for your
No,
healthy?
no earbuds.
No earbuds.
No earbuds.
So what do you use?
I get them clean when I go every 6 months.
What?
Yeah, because it pushes the wax further into
Further
your ear
in.
canal, and then it builds up on your eardrums.
Okay.
So that
Oh.
so it's easier to remove it when it's not against the eardrum,
Okay.
and then when it's against your eardrum, you have more chances of scraping it and damaging it on the.
But
wire.
what about on the day of the show? Because everything is so loud and you're constantly in rehearsals and stuff. Do you do anything to protect your ears at that point?
No,
You're
I
listening?
just monitor the levels, make sure it's not exceeding a healthy noise standard, as we call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, try and take silent breaks every
Mm.
hour or two. But in a show, you don't have a choice. You have to be there. You
Yeah.
have to be there by hook or
Right.
crook. But after the day after the show, I like spending it in absolute silence.
Absolute
Ah.
silence.
Absolute silence, if I can.
And what would you
Mm.
do in that?
A laundry, vacuuming, like vaisa stuff. No music.
No music.
No music. Just
Only noise that time.
just like things that need to be done, but in silence.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Great.
you so much, Chai. It was wonderful to have you. On that note, please do check out the show that Chaitanya is going to be sound engineering to. It's called
Cassette in my Walkman on.
The 6th of May, 2023.
Dorothy Winston Center, 6:30 sharp. That's what I've been told. If you are late, you're going to miss the show.
We have a very strict stage manager.
We have a very strict
Very
stage
strict.
manager. Yes.
6:30
And-
to be able to say his first words.
Oh yeah, hopefully, yeah. On that note, we'll see you next week again with yet another episode at Backstage Nonsense. I forgot the show name. Backstage Nonsense. This is me, Rosbe and Ritika. We're signing off for now.
See ya!
Thank you for listening to Backstage Nonsense. Remember to check out A Cassette in My Walkman, a musical concert on 6th of May, 6:30 p.m. at Dorothy Winston Center.